Hi, it's Tanya, and this is Trauma Talk, episode 8. And today I'm going to talk about calm spaces for one, but I'm also going to talk about singing and a few other things. I started holding the Calm Spaces workshop about 3 weeks ago, and last week I branched it so that it was on both Instagram and Facebook simultaneously. Which was a bit of a challenge, but I managed to work it out. I think I only missed one video getting uploaded on Instagram that I lost somewhere along the way. But overall, it went well, and I'll continue to work on it to see if I can't arrange it so that it's a little bit better, and maybe even incorporate live on LinkedIn or live on TikTok or something as well. And the reason why, because it helps. It helps me and it helps other people, and I know it does. And I, not only do I log on to teach it, but I log on and I get to experience all of these calming techniques that I'm teaching to everybody over and over and over again. And I've needed it because my system's been in flux for a while now. It's been really agitated and heightened into the nervous sector. So, and I have no idea of necessarily all the triggers or what's going on. I just know that when the trigger happens that I have to respond to it and what I need to do in order to do that. And that can take time too, because it depends on how hijacked the system is. But over time, it does get easier. Trust me that it does. But the point is to acknowledge that you can't stop it from happening. It's physiological. It's part of the autonomic nervous system. So it happens, and you just have to respond. So you can have a lot of triggers, some that you've identified and some that you won't, and you won't identify them until you encounter them. And sometimes even when you encounter it, unless you've done the reflection and the work behind it, you may never understand what the trigger was. So today, prior to my workshop, I was triggered. And for the record, my workshop is more just me doing live videos on the Calm Space workshop and giving tips and tricks on mindfulness and on dealing with anxiety and panic and depression and all of those things. So it's not like you have to do any work. You just have to watch me do things and interact if you want to get the full benefit. So I don't know if I should maybe call it something other than a workshop. I wouldn't know, like no one would know you're there unless I see you pop on the screen when I'm doing the live. But anyway, today I was triggered, and for whatever reason, it caused my temperature to plummet. I had perceived some threat somewhere along the lines. So my temperature plummeted, and I went through the same unsettled nervous system response that I get. And so I sang and I jumped and I danced, and I got my system going. I got the blood pumping and circulating and running out of my system a little bit, so I could energize off some of that nervous energy. But I also did the singing because it's hard to be thinking any negative thoughts when you're singing, because you're more than likely thinking about the words that you're singing in the song. And I do this to get the blood flowing, to distract myself from the situation, to calm myself down, to do all of that. It's those tremors, the jitteriness, the cold, shut down, disassociated. There's just a host of different symptoms, and depending on where it triggers you, because you can also get triggered into, just for me, slight anxiety where my temperature would get elevated. But if I dip beyond, I go into panic or into the disassociate phase where my temperature then plummets and I'm just freezing. But singing has been a huge part of my recovery, and I decided to talk a little bit more about that in the blog that I did today. And I think that it's just that creative activities are extremely beneficial to us, essential and absolutely essential when you're recovering from trauma. When you're recovering from trauma, you might not be able to find the words to express what you're going through or what you had experienced, or, you may not even understand yourself, because if you're like where I was, I had created blankness. I did not have memories associated to some of the traumas. I lock them away in a nice dark corner. So I do not know what happened. I just have the sensations related to that trauma. Other traumas, I remember them fully, and I kind of wish they could go behind the black door, but they can't. So, you know, you have to look at those creative activities as a way of processing through some of those traumas. It helps us to explore our emotions and to express ourselves when we can't find the words that we need to use. Just one second. No, I'm going to keep going with this. I'm sorry, I just got a phone call on my phone. I'm going to let them leave a message though, because I cannot pause and restore this. So where was I? When I was in the midst of some of my initial breakdown, and I was trying really desperately to get back to work as possible, I had this routine set up because I had to reestablish routines of getting up at 5 a.m. and have the whole process in place, even though I was still off on medical leave. But when I was setting up, reestablishing all of the routines and getting them in place, which, by the way, I love routines now. I think that they're fantastic for keeping, you know, your mental health in check for sure. But I would, in the morning, sketch for a half an hour, and art's been something that I've loved my whole life, and I've sketched since I was a small child. And of course, you know, I never thought that I had the skills to become anybody famous with it, but I had had enough positive feedback that I felt that I was a good artist, at least decent. So when I was doing the drawing as a way to just express myself creatively, I was able to come up with some pictures that were really, really beneficial in overcoming some of the trauma that I was dealing with. But one of the things that I found with it is because I was good at it, I was looking for that competition almost. I was wanting to, you know, I really wanted to do really good at it because I had convinced myself that if I just poured everything into it, I could become really good, and that it didn't have any value if I wasn't really good at it. And that's a mistake that we tend to make quite often, is we tie value to the activity based on whether we can make money from it, can we sell it, can we profit, is there, you know, can we get renowned from it, is someone going to be, you know, cheering us for how well we did. We've lost the pleasure center of just doing something for fun, just playing just to enjoy ourselves, and without any weight tied to the outcome. So, you know, it's important that that we pull back from that. And you know, it's part of the ego, that drive for comparison, and, you know, it's associated with your solar plexus chakra if you're into chakras. And we want to be the best, we want to be better than, and it's somehow tied to if we are better than, or if we're, you know, renowned, we stand out in this market, then we are enough. We've met some value that society has assigned to something, or to what we've assigned to something. But when you step back from it and you're like, is that really what defines your worth? Like, if you're a big executive, when you're at home and you're dealing with your stubborn child, does the worth that you derived from your executive position matter? I don't think your child cares, right? They just want you to be there and present and kind and compassionate, and the way that you show up as a parent is going to show the value to them, not that you have a title. If we assign worth to something that's external anyway, then we're always going to be chasing that, and that can always be shifting and changing, especially if it's something that's derived from society. I mean, at one point Twiggy was the way to look, and that another time is Christy Brinkley or it's somebody else. So you can't be both of those people. Nobody can. Twiggy's Twiggy and Christy Brinkley's Christy Brinkley. They look entirely different. You can't be 98 pounds and have a tiny frame and be 5'2" if you were born to be a 5'10" leggy girl. You can't. So why assign value to something that is a flowing, constant, changing state that society's dictating for you, rather than what you're dictating for yourself? So again, with your hair, if it was one year it's thin hair and, you know, like flat and pencil straight is in, and you've got big curls, well, that's just a changing time. Like, you shouldn't be deriving your worth from that. You're worth far, far, far more than your hair or what society says or your job or, you know, how well you do, you know, you draw a picture or how well you sing a song in a video game or on karaoke. So when singing, I had to overcome that understanding. Like, it came up in therapy, and it's something I love to sing, but I wasn't good at it, or at least that was the notion that I had. As a small child, I'd heard plenty of times, you know, you can't carry a tune in a, you couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, and, you know, you're tone deaf, or you can't sing, just straight up, you can't sing, or stop torturing us. You know, if you have siblings, I'm sure you've experienced some pretty good taunting at some point. But when it's coming from adults around you, it really affects your view of yourself, and you think, absolutely, I cannot sing. So for my whole life, as much as it was something that I just genuinely loved to do, it's just something that lights me up, I didn't want to do it because someone might hear me and, well, you know, I can't sing. I was told repeatedly that's not something that I can do. So when it was brought up in therapy as an option to use to kind of sing it out and just sing out the feelings instead of doing the drawing where I might get more, you know, competitive because I have this, you know, skill set and now I'm improving on it. So I have a drive to become a certain level of better, just to sing for fun. And it took a long time to turn off that competitive nature. And it didn't stay off on every single day. It didn't stay off on every single song. And, you know, like, so it was a constant battle that I had to go through, where I knew that the benefits of singing and the vibrations and, you know, the distraction, the movement, all of that, you know, music in and of itself is so healing. I was getting all of those benefits, but I still would have to battle with the fact that I was being competitive with myself, or that I would get frustrated or angry. And whenever I felt that bubble up where I'd be just like, oh, I didn't do good on that song, then I would recognize and be like, okay, that's not the reason why we're doing this. We're not doing this to get angry. We're not doing this to get into this big competition with yourself. And I started changing it around, because I started saying to myself, it doesn't matter whether I do better today than I did yesterday. Either way, it was still me. I'm still ultimately the one that has the high score on that song on my machine. I'm the one that sang it. So it's just a matter of yesterday's Tanya did better than today, and maybe tomorrow I'll do better than I did yesterday. So, you know, it's just to give that credence to it was me no matter what. So when you're looking at, you know, if you're doing something and you're not getting the quality that you want, you can always look at it and say, well, I did better before, so I'm capable of more, or I'm capable of doing better again. Or, you know, it's just reframing the way that you look at it and taking some of that competition off of it, because it's always you that's doing that great quality of work. And one day you do better, and the next day maybe not so much, but it's okay, because you'll do better again, and eventually get better, because with practice and time and repetition, everybody gets better at what they're doing. You have no choice. Muscle memory. So it took me a while too. When I first started, I started singing, and I would sing, but I was doing more of a mimicking other people's voices, or singing how I thought that they sounded, and not using my own voice, which I'm still working on. And there's the problem with that is that whole ties into self-worth, and you don't think highly enough of yourself that you'd even want to hear your voice anyway, and you think that you have to sing like the person singing it in the song, exactly the way that they sound, because, well, why would you want to sound like you? Like, that's just ridiculous. Who would want to hear you? Right? So it took a while before I got to the point where I started to recognize that I was more mimicking what I thought the song should sound like, versus singing it how my voice naturally is and how I determine the pitch or the tone to be. So I finally started to practice singing in my voice, and it has grown quite a bit. Um, so now I have in my mindset, I work towards excellence. It's not about perfection. It's about trying to just improve my skill and get better. And if I don't punish myself, because it just means yesterday I was better than I am today. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the really cool thing was, like, this is all derived from like being awkward, not comfortable with being yourself, and not feeling like you could just be exactly who you are, right? Like, how much more of a statement is not being willing to sing in your own voice than just a shining example of not being comfortable in your own skin, right? So once I started getting comfortable in playing with what my voice sounded like and singing like that, there would be these moments where I would hit some crazy note that was really long and expressive and lovely, and or it was high in a range that I didn't think that I could hit, or even low where I didn't think that I could manage. And you just hit that note and you're singing it in your own voice, and it would just make this like feeling in your chest of just like bliss. And you couldn't help but just realize in that moment that the bliss is that you're loving yourself so much in that moment, and you're just being you. Like, in that moment you're singing in your absolute natural voice that is just so authentically you. How can, and you're feeling so happy, and it's just that love for yourself in that moment. It's amazing. So I really encourage anybody who's doing recovery to play with different things. Try something new all the time. You never know what you're going to pick up, that you're just going to find out that it lines up with your joy. It lines up with, over time and practice, that you get to a point where you really enjoy the level that you're at. Some things, I mean, it's not about being good or bad. It's being knowledged or unknowledged, being experienced or unexperienced. Is, you can build a skill in any set that you want. It's just how much time and effort are you willing to put into it. So that was, we stopped playing as a society. We became more, you get up at 5, you get ready for work, you go to work, you come home, you get ready for dinner, you eat your dinner, you watch some TV, you get up and you do it all over again. You throw showers, you throw children, you throw groceries and laundry and all those duties in there, and that's your life. And where's the play? Where's the fun? Where's the enjoyment? Where's the celebration of your spirit? Where's the love for yourself? Where is it being expressed in your life on a day-to-day basis? Right? And we've just shut it down for so long. Most of us are depressed, and I talked about with my depression how it's like the color goes out of the world. And I think that our world is just, it's a much more dim world right now, because there's so many of us that are just existing and not actually living and loving life. We just exist, and it's an incredibly different life when you start to honor your heart and your spirit and your body, and you do the things that are healthy for it, and you start to take care of it and nourish it and treat it like it's your most treasured and valuable asset, because it is. You are the only thing that, if without you, there's no life for you, right? Life might go on for everybody else, but so you are the most important thing in your world, as you should be. So when you start changing your internal environment, that's when everything else starts to change, because that's the only thing that you can control. You might have to go to the job that you have to go to because you have bills to pay. That's a choice that you're making. By the way, you can choose to change it. It might be difficult. It might seem impossible, but it's never really impossible. I think that, we could look at people that are, say, restrained in some way, like imprisoned or something. They may have no option to change their physical environment. But the most of us, I mean, if you don't really like your job, you could actually quit your job and get another job. Would it create difficulty for you? Probably, or potentially, maybe not. It depends on how you go about doing it. That being said, it's still within your choice, even if it is a hard choice to make. So start just making the choices for you that benefit you, that make you happy, that put a smile on your face, that light up your world. And as we start to light up our own individual world, you can't help but get to the point where when you love yourself, that you want to go forward and spread that love to everybody else. And that's what happened with me and with Calm Spaces specifically, is that I just want to help people. And so I started doing it as a way to, to work with other people, to give them some tools to balance out their emotional distress, or to deal with anxiety, or to cope with PTSD. And these were things that worked for me so well that I really wanted to just share them. And then I hope that everybody else continues to share them. And I know they're valuable because I've had so much positive feedback from people through text messages, or even just little notes on the sessions and stuff like that, where they found such value from it. So that just fills me up some more. So I get to do these Calm Spaces technique, to do mindfulness and grounding, to ground myself into the present, which helps me deal with my PTSD, which is flared up right now. And I get to pass on calm techniques to everybody else to improve their world. And then I get to hear back from them that it's improved it, and it just fills my heart up even more. So this really is a circle of bliss, and I thank you for being a part of it. So anyway, that's it for Trauma Talk, episode 8. I hope to see you to see that you catch in this week, and that you check in next week, and you continue to watch, subscribe, follow. If you need any help with the Calm Space, connect with me. And if you are looking for a coach, I have some packages available, so connect. Anyway, have a great day. This is Trauma Talk episode 8, and it's Tanya from Mind, Body, Spirit, Healthy.